Pulled from an icy lake after 45 silent minutes, a teenager arrives with frost in his hair and a flat line on the screen. The team bets everything on winter itself, because sometimes you aren't gone until warmth says so. The machine beat his chest for us, steady, merciless, like a boot landing on a frozen floor. On the screen, the green line was a quiet road with no cars. The small number that should climb with each push of air barely twitched. Water kept leaking from his sleeves and pooling under the stretcher as if the lake had followed him inside and refused to leave. Frost ringed his hair like a crown winter made. I brushed his eyebrow with my glove and ice, dusted my sleeve. I asked myself the only question I can stand on nights like this. When is a flatline the end, and when is it a detour? Our emergency room carries its own winter hush. You can hear a snowplow scrape past the doors. Coffee from the vending machine tastes like burnt toast and courage. Night staff speak smaller, as if each decibel belongs to whoever needs it most. The big center that owns the blood-warming machine, the one that can take over for a while and heat a person on the outside, sits more than 40 minutes away in good weather. Tonight the roads shine like spilled glass. The battery lights on our gear sulk in the cold. I stood at the foot of the bed and felt the room tilt toward a choice that would not let us be careful. I'm a transport nurse and a paramedic in one set of boots. They send me from scene to ER to helicopter or ambulance when a story promises to be long and ugly. 2 winters ago, I stood in a similar room with a smaller boy and did everything by the book until the book ran out of pages. I called the time, wrote it down, handed a mother a warm blanket and a word I still hate. She sent me a thank you note. I could not stop reading it as an indictment. Since then, I overcorrect. I cling to outliers like rope. When someone says, "No one survives that," I hear someone sometimes did. We heard the radio call before we saw him. "Teen through the ice," the voice said, as if quiet could rearrange physics. "Under for 40 plus. Cold water. Chest pushes started on shore." Dispatch read the time the call hit the system, anchoring horror to a clock. A woman's voice leaked in behind the report, raw as a scraped knee. "John, baby, please." Someone must have left the hall door open. I could hear her before I met her. In my head, I pictured the lake, the black hole with teeth, the glare of floodlights, the rope that bites your gloves, the sudden stillness after hands stop splashing. They rolled him in with the lake still clinging. Wet basketball shoes slapped the stretcher rail. A blue jacket that would never be warm again stuck to his chest. Dark hair stood in stiff ridges. The firefighters who had hauled him out wore that look we reserve for each other, shame at being human enough to get tired, pride at having ignored it, a hunger that thinks it can be fed with breath alone. One of them patted the chest pump like a dog that had done well. "Never stopped," he told me, and his voice chafed with the cold that lives in bone. We moved like a practiced choir. Someone slid a tube to carry air where it was needed. Warmed salt water began its slow walk into his arm. We fed a soft wire down his throat to find what heat he had left. The first number that wire returned was higher than my fingers believed. His skin said the room was lying. His skin said stone. "Too shallow," I muttered. "It's telling a hopeful story it hasn't earned." I promised myself I'd fix it in a minute. Then another minute arrived with noise in it, and my promise evaporated like breath on a mask. The chest pump's battery light winked a dare, 1 bar gone already. The spare sat across the bay, past puddles and boots and a mother drawing a circle around herself with her arms. We checked what the lake had done to his blood the way you check oil in a car you're asking to cross a desert. The first tube came back with a number that said, "Don't try." The sample had been rushed. The cells broke on the way. That number was a lie forged by chaos. The big center wanted a clean draw, a truer measure of his cold, and a better number from that wire in his throat. 2 winters ago, I had not looked up from the rules. A boy that age, water not this cold, time not this long. I followed the steps until the steps ended, and then I ended them. My mentor caught me in the hallway later and said it without a lecture. Guidelines are rails. If you hear a train, don't keep your head down and walk. I taped those words inside my locker and under my ID badge and, eventually, inside the part of my chest that makes yes or no. Tonight I could hear a train. It sounded like a mother in a hallway saying her child's name as if the word could plug a hole in the world. "Hold the room for us," my doctor said into the receiver, not yet pleading, not yet proud. "We'll earn it." The voice on the other end said they could keep a spot for an hour, maybe a bit more. It depended. Everything depends on nights like this. The pump thumped his sternum. The breath number twitched, climbed when someone leaned into the machine at a better angle, then dropped like a bird remembering gravity. We brushed gel on his chest and pressed the small camera there. On the gray screen his heart sat like a stunned turtle. Only the pump's echo moved it. "John," his mother breathed from the doorway. She stood as if the threshold might splinter under her. She held neither breath nor reason, and I loved her for choosing the stupid, holy word that still works when nothing else does. "John." I stepped toward her and kept my voice plain. "We're going to warm him carefully. Cold can harm, but it can also hold things quiet. If we can show his inside matches his outside, the downtown team will take over and warm his blood on the outside. But we have to keep going the whole way there." She looked from his face to the pump and then to the clock, as if she could add time back with a stare. The attending gathered us for a tiny, brutal meeting that took 30 seconds and felt like an oath. One clinician said what good people have to say: "We have one road crew, one winter night, one slot at the big center, and a dozen other patients whose lives are not made of luck." Another answered with the only arithmetic I trust: age and cold together make a different math. We gave his mother plain words. We wrote down her answer. She gave it like a law. "Keep going. Don't stop," she said, not with fury but with policy. "If there's a way, don't stop." I nodded and signed the paper that says you told the family your intentions. We redrew the blood the right way, slow pull, clean tube, no foam. I eased the wire deeper, then a little more, until I knew the number coming back belonged to the place where winter hides last. I kept my palm on his shoulder because instruments lie mostly when your hand isn't paying attention. Lower than before, our monitor nurse said. She didn't use decimals. We don't tempt fate with decimals. That's a strange phrase to make a person smile, the doctor said, and did anyway. He said the rule out loud then, the one we repeat often and never so loudly as now: we don't call the end until a body is warm. Used wrong, it's cruel. Used right, it's a lantern. Right now it turned the road ahead from swamp to path. The big hospital agreed to take him. Bring him with the chest pump still on, they said. No racing spring into him in the back. Keep his body winter. Keep breaths gentle. We'll heat his blood on arrival. I'll ride, I said, and it wasn't a request. The medic beside me looked relieved. He's new enough to keep kindness on the outside of his face. We set about making a boy into a convoy. Warm blankets tucked like origami. Tape on every loose thing. Knots checked and checked again. A timer ran in my head that had nothing to do with clocks, chest pump battery, radio battery, how long the heat packs stay hot, spare batteries in the back, our hands. Each time the pump struck his sternum, my shoulders imagined the ache of a minute without it. Batteries 1 bar, the medic said, pretending his voice wasn't worried. Swap now or in the rig? Now, I said. Clean swap. You take the lead with hands if it fumbles. We counted down like a space launch. 3, 2, lift, swap, seat, press. For less than a breath, the room looked like people in a painting, arms skewed, jaws clenched, and then the pump found its job again and thumped, thumped, thumped. The breath number sagged and then climbed back to its thin plateau. The gray heart stayed a picture. We moved. Snow squealed under stretcher wheels. The seam where tile meets the rubber of the ambulance bay grabbed a caster and snapped us all into the present. Cold shoved itself into our jackets, then got confused and collided with the heat from behind. The boy's breath fogged the tube at his mouth like a door trying to steam over. Out in the bay, our rig waited with its back open like a mouth. Inside lights made the snow taller. Salt crusted the door frame, My boots left white chevrons. Our driver, a woman who treats ice like chess, met my eyes and nodded once. Inside, everything looks the same until it doesn't. We moved him onto our stretcher. The pump kept pounding totalitarian and true. We secured the tube, the lines, the wires. I slid another warm pack under his shoulder blade and told myself it wasn't for comfort, because the part of me that insists on honesty taps my mouth with a ruler, and the rest of me wanted desperately to tuck love under each bone. "Radio check," I said. The speaker gurgled with road hiss, and the dispatcher's voice thinned by distance. "Go ahead," she said. "You're headed." "Leaving small hospital at 0227, I said. "Snow sticking. Chest pump on. Warming carefully. Wire deep. Boy's name is John Smith. 14, maybe 15. Shoes say 15. Mother behind us with patrol." "Copy," the voice said. "Room is ready. Keep the body winter. Keep the breaths gentle. Don't make spring in the back. We don't run the siren on ice unless we must." Drivers panic when they hear that song and forget to be reasonable. Tonight the only sound up front was the diesel's low growl. A plow threw a brown ridge onto the shoulder. Streetlights made halos on the blacktop. The road wore glare like jewelry. At the mall turnoff, the sign flashed that the bridge deck could be icy, and I laughed at the idea there was anything left that only could be. We crawled over the river with the dignity of a parade float that knows the mayor is watching. In back, I kept one hand on the boy's shoulder and the other on the pump strap while I watched our small breath number rise and fall like a bird on a wire. At mile 3, the warmer for the salt water flashed an error and quit like a singer who forgot her lines. I switched to the spare we keep under the bench, the one that still had its plastic crinkle like a grocery bag that swears it can carry bricks. "Don't quit on me," I told the first one, and then apologized to the second for my infidelity. At mile 5, the chest pump's battery light blinked red. The spare battery rattled in its case when I shifted my weight. It always rattled, and I always told myself I'd fix it later. Later wasn't invited tonight. 2 blocks of radio silence live on that route, a dead zone that eats words and spits back hiss. I warned the driver when we were close. The moment we entered it, the world shrank to 3 bodies and a machine. If the pump had failed during those blocks, no one would have heard us ask for a hand. So we planned the worst and practiced it. Me on the chest, medic at the head, driver breaking us a pocket of road wide enough to work. My arms trusted the plan and resented it at the same time. They knew the bill they'd pay. We counted again. 3, 2, lift, swap, seat, press. For 1 scalded second, the pump sulked. We jumped in with hands. The metronome app on the wall clicked its wooden knock. Knock, 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 knock. A woodpecker saving a tree. My arms took the ache I'd promised them. The breath number dipped during the swap, and then climbed back like a person stepping off a curb and not falling. The dispatch channel cracked into static. The winter between here and the big hospital likes to steal words. I flipped to the alternate channel and met only hiss. Our driver's voice came through the internal speaker, bored so she wouldn't make us more frightened than we already were. "Black ice near the mall," she said. 2 cars kissing the median. 1 lane open. "I'm taking the shoulder. You're not allowed to be impressed." "I'm impressed," I said, "because I'm bad at rules." My phone rang, the one velcroed under the radio for nights like this. "I'm behind you," his mother said. "I can see your lights." "I'm here." She wasn't asking for anything. She was giving me a fact I could wear like a coat. "You're here," I repeated. "That matters." "How is he?" she asked. "Cold enough that winter might be holding him for us," I said, because my job forces me to make sentences that keep truth bearable. "The big team is ready. We are not stopping." "Don't," she said, her voice dropping into authority. "Please." We swung off the highway to avoid a pileup that had gathered 3 cars the way magnets collect nails. Surface streets were worse, the way small mistakes often hurt more than big ones. The night laid out an obstacle course and then blamed us for running it. We slid past a bus angled wrong in the snow while the driver inside lifted both palms in a helpless prayer. a pickup nosed out of a driveway and scolded its own brakes. A sedan tried to help by stopping too quickly and almost made new trouble. Through it all, our driver carried us like a teacup full to the brim. She knows the weight of a person you haven't met yet. She knows how to drive for a mother in a patrol car 2 bumpers back. I watched the small breath number hold 12 and promised it a cookie it could never eat. He had a faint blue line at the edges of his lips, more modest than television would paint. A pale scar on his knee said bicycle. Tape kept his eyes quiet. Under the tape, he looked like every kid who jokes about algebra and pretends not to care and then cries when a friend is unkind. I have learned to talk to people whose eyes don't answer. "John," I said, catching my voice before it broke, "we're borrowing a machine that will do a job your body forgot. It will warm your blood out here, then give it back. It's weird. It's allowed. Let us get you there." Our small breath number crept up. 12, the medic said, in a tone that didn't demand it stay. 12 is its own country, I said. 2 minutes of 12 is a quilt. He leaned into the pump and shifted his stance so the machine hit straighter. Snow made the windows into frosted glass. At a light that had decided it didn't care about us, the driver took a right on the shoulder, then a left between a snowbank and a bus stop shelter, and then rode a path into new snow like a person signing their name. The big hospital rose out of the dark like a ship. The back doors opened to a hallway where heat hit us like applause. A team in gowns waited with hands already moving. People who run the outside blood machine don't rush. They make speed inside grace. I read the wall clock and wrote the time on a sticker and put it on my sleeve. It's a habit. I carry times. The time a boy mouthed "Mom." The time a girl's heart auditioned for its job. The time a pump thunked on an empty battery and a rookie's shoulders kept the rhythm alive. They asked the mother to step to the corner for consent that meant the same thing as her earlier sentence. Plain talk, plain signatures, no tricks with paper. She pressed the pen down so hard I worried it would break. I wrote the acceptance time in my notebook, the way I always do, because some hours are too heavy to leave on a wall clock. I don't know why it helps. It just does. The leader read the numbers we brought and nodded his chin once in a way that felt like a promise and not a plan. "You kept him, Winter," their leader said to me, touching the boy's shoulder with the back of his glove. "Good. The wire is deep now," I said. "Numbers honest. Lower than the first. The breath number sits near 12 when the pump is punching. The gray picture still shows a still heart. And the fresh draw?" he asked. "Clean," I said. "Not as bad as the first scary one." We both use the verb we pretend we don't. Hope. They moved him onto their bed that rises like a stage. Thick clear tubes looped into a box that hummed softly. Inside the box, a spiral waited for blood. A nurse tore open a package and the sound of plastic ripping reached into my throat. Someone poured warmed fluid into a basin the way priests pour wine into chalices when they have a point. Everyone had a job, and none of those jobs were mine, except one: keep watching the small breath number and the quiet line, and say something if either told a story the others couldn't hear over their own tasks. We lifted the pump one last time so they could slide a warming pad underneath him. The number dipped, then settled. The leader glanced at my hand on the boy's shoulder. "You can keep that hand there," he said, and I fell a little in love with him for saying it. His mother arrived 2 heartbeats later, escorted by a guard who had learned the difference between strict and kind. She stopped where a line of tape asked her to stop, and then stepped over it because that rule now belonged to her. "I'm here," she told him, the only correct sentence. The leader turned and made a speech that wasn't a speech, plain talk about borrowing a machine to warm blood and give it back. "We've seen people come back because Winter held them while we worked," he said. "The road is long. There are reasons to stop. We're not at those reasons." "Don't stop," she said. He nodded as if she had confirmed a plan he already believed. They cleaned skin with the care reserved for rituals and first kisses. Thick, short tubes stood ready to become plumbing. They spoke in short nouns and verbs that don't scare families. Their hands turned those words into a map spread across a body. Through the glass, I saw my reflection and 24 small businesses running at once. I also saw the lake again, because the brain insists. The hole with teeth, the single shoe on the bank, the floodlights, the mother kneeling in a jacket that wasn't made for truth. And then this room, this fish tank washing machine room, trying to manufacture dawn. The flat lines stayed a horizon with no sun. The box began to hum. The clear tubes darkened, then brightened, a tide-finding rhythm. Warmth began outside his body and planned its way back in. I pressed my shoulder blades into the wall and let my arms tremble for 1 private inch. "Now we wait," the leader said. Waiting is its own labor. It looks like standing still. It costs as much as running. The boy's mother refused the chair and took the rail instead. She set her forehead on her wrist and breathed like a person learning to sing a slow song. The guard watched the hall for trouble that wouldn't dare come inside this room. The pump kept time. The small number wobbled, then held. We had no idea yet whether the flat line was a finish or a detour. We knew only that this was the best door we could make for him tonight. We waited, which in a room like this means motion pretending to be calm. The nightstand-sized box whispered. Clear hoses looped out of the boy and back in, carrying warmth like tea cupped in 2 hands. The chest-thumping robot finally went quiet, its arm hanging like a tired elbow. The little member we watched, how well air was leaving, crept upward in embarrassed steps. The green line stayed horizon, horizon, horizon. His mother kept 2 fingers on the rail, as if pinning the world to the floor. Someone rolled a chair near her. She ignored it. A security officer stood at the door, furniture with a purpose. The leader told his crew, slow is smart, and their speech shrank to rope-throw words. Hold, more, ease enough. The woman with the braid watched the hoses like a farmer watches sky. I pressed the tape on my sleeve where I'd written our arrival time. I keep minutes like pocket charms. Frost had melted from the boy's lashes. A bead of lake water sat in his ear. I wicked it with gauze because dignity is a kind of medicine too. My mentor's line, warmth isn't a parade. It's a vote played in my head as small yes stacked. Blue lips softened. His inside heat nudged up by fingernails. The breathing figure lingered in the teens. But when the small camera looked, his heart told the same story, no motion of its own. The room felt larger when the chest robot paused. Quiet arrived like a fridge turning off. You only notice the hum when it leaves. The warming box had taken over moving blood. The boy's chest still rose because a separate machine coached it, but the pounding stopped and everyone's bones had to invent a new rhythm. Gentle air, the leader said, and even the machine obeyed. His mother spoke above a breath name, scraps of a lullaby, promises about pancakes. Voices so in rooms like this. On the monitor, the green line twitched. Not a hill, more a thought that wanted to be one. It flattened, then tried again. No one leaned in. Superstition disguised as respect. Don't crowd a wild animal deciding if it wants to be seen. Numbers came steady, warmth climbing, not boasting. We don't invite spring, the leader said. We introduce it. Long minutes refused to be short. My mind kept stepping to the lake, the black mouth in the ice, then back to the square of light over the bed. The other winter, when I called a time too soon, lifted its head. I gripped the cart's edge to stay in this night. The green line managed a ragged hill, fell flat, then built another. The room split without speaking, wait and let warmth finish, or give the heart a knock it might understand. Everyone saw the same picture, paddles, clear gel, a brief jump. It's arrogant and humble at once. We think you might be ready. We'll ask the question only your chest can answer. 2 winters ago, I didn't ask in time. The chance walked by without slowing. The leader checked the clock and folded the mother into the moment. We have a window, he said. If we try now, it may help. If we wait, warmth might do this part on its own. We can only pick one. She placed her hand on her son's ankle. It had been marble when she arrived. Now it hinted at piano key color. She listened, then used her voice like a lever. Do what you do for your own. Not child. It didn't need saying. He looked at me, not for permission, but to count another adult who'd carry the weight of either regret. Behind my badge, rails. Trains. Look up. I'd heard the train, that stubborn hill trying to assemble itself. One knock, I said. A question, not a performance. A question, he agreed. The paddles appeared. The gel smelled like new balloon and cheap soap. The green line acted sullen. Clear, he said, softer than TV. He pressed the button. The body flinched small. Silence bared its teeth. A strand of hair floated down. 5 seconds tried to be 10. In the 6th, the green line through a mountain, then a second, then too many to deny. Do we feel it? Someone asked, because screens lie. 2 fingers found the neck. Yes. Not a cheer, just the correct-sized word. His mother made a sound outside the alphabet, a rope finally pulling back from the other end. I'm here, she said, again and again, like a small law. The security officer looked at the floor. Sometimes joy is ruder to witness than grief. We didn't clap. We acted as if luck could evaporate if stared at directly. The warming kept its careful pace. The green line offered hills. The breathing figure settled. Color returned under nails and along ears, not like paint, like remembering. The leader set his metal listener aside, touched the boy's wrist, did private math with his eyes closed, then opened them and gave his crew a nod, believe enough to continue. The woman with the braid adjusted the box by a whisper. The machine agreed. My arms trembled like I'd pushed a car from a ditch, though my job had been standing still. I retaped tape that didn't need help. Break. I asked his mother. No, she said, operational and untrue. We coasted on careful settings. The leader glanced at the clock and told the room the title we deserve on nights like this. We aren't heroes. We're carriers. After the sprint came tutoring. The body relearned chores. Take air and without showing off. Let it out without complaint. Accept heat without panic. Keep a beat because you chose to. Death White turned to sicktail. Pupils narrowed at the lamp. A hand curled once, and his mother refused to declare a sign. I loved her for waiting on something that could survive sunlight. Walk him toward morning, the leader said. My thread, iced tea yard to truck, had reached its knot. I stepped back so the people who live here could own the many hours ahead. The clock's red numbers became time again, not accusation. Days in intensive care stack like folded towels. They borrow from each other and claim it was original. On my next shift, the box still hummed, but lazily now, letting his own parts carry more. The bedside nurse had the competence of someone who can move 10 tasks and still find one finger for kindness. He tried 2 breaths on his own, she said. Called me mom once by mistake. I'm keeping it. His mother had started to sit, grudgingly. She drank water without apologizing to the air. She kept a notebook with names and deeds so later she wouldn't turn staff into angels. She'd copied my bad cursive. I forgave the exactness. It felt like proof I'd been useful. They finished warming him like knotting a small boat's line, hands on the rope, checking for slip. The box did less so his own heart and lungs could remember. Color drew itself in as fact, not blush. The basketball shoes from the first ER waited under the chair, cleaned and stuffed with newspaper. Their laces were tied with the care you reserve for things you dare hope to use again. He opened his eyes at a bad hour for poetry. The night nurse was tucking warmth into the idea of a shin. He squinted at air until he found his mother. She divided the next breath into swallowable pieces. He shaped his mouth around sounds with a toddler's stubbornness and a survivor's brain. The first word he caught was the one big enough to sit behind the teeth at all times, Mom. Removing the tube wasn't cinema. It was housekeeping, a bit of suction, a cloth, a mask at the ready, eyes pretending boredom while they hunted disaster. He coughed like a broom in a church, then breathed on his own with such teen irritation a tech went pink around the eyes. He sipped water. His mother watched like he'd invented swallowing. He tried cold, decided on Mom, then pointed at the tape mustache line and cracked an eyebrow joke we should bill for. Therapy arrived with golden retriever energy and assigned miracles disguised as chores. Lift a thumb, try the other, sit like a king, stand like a fool, step toward the window hadn't earned. He scowled and agreed. His legs trembled like wires in wind, then settled. The first lap to the doorway looked like a beginner's waltz, stiff, determined, magnificent. I saw him pass later wearing the famous shoes. He walked with nervous pride, 2 fingers gliding along the wall as if naming the hallway. Double-knotted laces. He reached the nurse's station, turned, and collapsed into the chair grinning. "I'm fine," he told his mother, which is teenage for this, is the hardest thing I've ever done. "Please treat me like I've always been this strong." He wanted fries. The dietitian disapproved. The nurse performed disapproval. His mother authorized like a head of state. He ate 3 and fell asleep, clutching a 4th like a talisman. His father, roads open this time, guilt carried like luggage, arrived, touched the same ankle, and let his eyes learn his son's face in safer light. No one told shoreline stories yet, the hole with teeth, the rope burn, the robot thumping, because he didn't need our heroics. He needed new rules. Water lies, ice lies better, bodies are stubborn and lucky at once. When he left, no hallway lineup. We saved that for the smallest babies. The leader came in street clothes, shook the boy's hand like 2 citizens, nodded to the mother, shook mine. The security officer leaned in, avoid frozen ponds forever actually, even when they look safe, and earned a "yes, sir." The braided nurse waggled her braid when he quipped that ice feared him now. "Buddy," she said, "ice doesn't know you exist," and he saluted. They left with a boat anchor folder, a white bag that rattled, a calendar starred and circled, and a list that said call no matter what. The shoes slapped polished floor like a gym reopening. The doors parted and let them into a winter that would never mean the same thing again. I didn't cry. I bought squeaky crackers from the glass box and ate them like practice gratitude. I washed my hands too long because finishing a small task tricks nerves into coming home. The time sticker for my sleeve lives in my wallet now, next to the minute the green line built its first hill and kept going. Those numbers keep me honest. These nights aren't dreams and they aren't normal. There's a fence between those fields where I can stand handbooks save us, edge cases teach us. A month later the case showed up at morning meeting, tucked between parking and label your lunch. 1 slide, 1 sentence. Don't declare endings for winter bodies. We kindly argued over what we did and how to be readier the next time a lake decides to be a mouth. We praised 3 big choices and a dozen quiet habits that let those choices matter. No one pretended to invent courage. I drove past the lake on a day the sky felt emptied. The hole was neat with lies now smoothed over. A new sign spoke in square letters. Icy isn't safe because it looks smooth. Weight isn't magic. Don't trust it. Bossy and correct. I wanted to hug whoever fought for Blunt. The wind fox barked. Nothing approached but air organizing itself. I still go from shorelines to sliding doors to trucks that hate January. I still line syringes like parade floats and thank alarms out loud. I still hear my mentor in the vents. Rails. Trains. Look up. Sometimes there's no train and you finish the script. Sometimes there is, and you step off the tracks and make room for wet shoes and a mother who refuses a chair. A letter came weeks later. Not thanks, something better. We get more nights at the table now. For firsts followed. First joke only they found funny. First solo walk to the mailbox. First time he stood at the neighborhood pond and chose the sidewalk without prompting. And the line that undid me, he ties his shoes slower. If you want a moral, it lives there. Keep these last pictures. Sneaker stuffed with newspaper under a chair finally used. A scrap of tape in a wallet with a time and terrible pen. A square sign telling winter truths. And a boy in a hallway that smells like disinfectant and cheap fries. Walking with 2 fingers grazing the wall. Not because he needs to exactly, but because he knows the world can wobble and he's allowed to study it.